Welcome to Transform Now, the podcast brought to you by SS&C Blue Prism. Agentic automation isn't just the next step in automation, it's the future of how work gets done. By enabling intelligent, autonomous agents to take action, adapt, and collaborate, organizations are unlocking new levels of productivity, growth, and customer delight. Join us as we explore how agentic automation is reshaping work for the better, for customers, employees, shareholders, and most importantly, you. To stay on top of the hottest topics in the world of agentic automation, subscribe now. Let's get into the show.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Transform Now podcast, our last episode of 2025, and we are super excited to round out what happened this year with our end-of-year predictions from last year. So, Brad, I know you've been crunching the data. What's been going on?
Yeah, we did a podcast early January, and between the three of us, each of us made 6 predictions for 2025. And yeah, it's kind of beyond me to assess how we did. So I did what every person today does. You go and you seek advice from a large language model. So I went to Claude, and Claude was very happy to help me out. What I did was I took 6 predictions from each of us. I prompted them, into the model, and I said, how did we do? But I also went a little further and said, and I need some evidence of your assessment. So don't just say, oh, it's okay, it was highly accurate or not accurate. Give me your reasoning so that we can talk about it, the three of us. So what I'd like to do, with your permission, is go through each of our predictions for the year, talk about how Claude assessed the accuracy based on what's happened in 2025. And then you can react. You can say, oh, I disagree with Claude, or yeah, that sounds about right. Whatever you want to say. I know, just having read the results, you're not going to agree with everything Claude said. But on the whole, I will say, I think it was fairly objective. I think it did a decent job of, really looking for some good evidence and what have you. So without further ado, can we jump right in?
Let's
You
do
guys
it.
ready? Okay. Dr. Lou, you're the youngest of the three of us and the smartest. So I'll start with your predictions, and you have a doctorate. So for those 3 reasons, I'm going to do your predictions first. Okay.
Let's see how I did.
Your first prediction was that generative AI will have a smaller but a more focused role in 2025. So focusing on triage and structuring unstructured data rather than end-to-end solutions, with traditional automation and machine learning handling, doing the subsequent processing. So that was your first prediction, and Claude thought that was partially accurate. So it didn't like go off the scale, partially accurate. It said that it was directionally correct. While Gen AI didn't shrink in overall usage, the industry indeed moved forward toward more focused, specialized applications. Small language models emerged as a major trend, with MIT naming them the breakthrough technology of 2025. Companies increasingly deployed targeted models for specific tasks rather than relying on the massive general purpose LLMs. However, Gen AI adoption continued to expand. 75% of business leaders are using it, according to one survey, but they're doing it with more strategic, cost-conscious deployment patterns. So that's what I got back from Claude on that. What do you think?
Makes perfect sense, because, what I was predicting, looking in hindsight, it's now what we just consider common sense. You want to use the right tool for the right task. And generative AI is a very powerful tool, but there are lots of times where it's going to be, higher cost or higher risk and take longer than a more traditional approach. But it also makes sense that even though we've seen a lot of those initial Gen AI pilots get canceled, something like 47%, according to Gartner, we've also seen a ton of companies implementing solutions that don't necessarily follow that common sense and using AI where it shouldn't be. So makes perfect sense to me that would be partially correct.
Okay.
Michael, more correct as we go on, though.
Yeah. Michael, any thoughts from you on that?
Nope. I think your summary was accurate, and I agree that we're going to see these tools continue to evolve. So I think it was more. When he said it was directionally correct, I think it was more than just directionally correct. So I think he was more correct than perhaps Claude gave him credit for.
I think it's more correct than people actually did. Maybe people should have taken that advice more.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, let's go to prediction number 2. I think this one you might disagree with. So the prediction was that agentic AI will boom and then scale back. You felt like, initially there's going to be an agent for everything, but this won't last because governance concerns, cost, people not liking to talk to AI agents, all those reasons. Claude said that is partially accurate. This prediction showed, it did say this prediction showed remarkable insight. So,
well, of course it did. Coming from Dr. Lu.
Agentic AI did indeed boom. 79% of companies adopted agents by mid 2025, with 88% planning to increase budgets. However, the scale back aspect was more nuanced. Rather than scaling back, the industry moved toward what you predicted: front-end agentic interfaces with more controlled back-end executions. Companies did struggle with governance. 62% cited that as their top challenge in one survey. And many implementations remained shallow rather than deeply transformative. The governance concerns that you warned about, Dr. Lu, became a major industry focus with extensive discussion about trust, oversight, and the need for human in the loop. So I was surprised. I thought it would give you accurate.
Yeah, it seems like it's agreeing with you 100%.
That's what I was thinking. Agreed with a lot of what you said. It came into being or into existence over this past year.
Yeah.
I am surprised it gave you such a poor score.
I think it was swayed by the large percentage of companies that have adopted agents. Even though that number seems a little bit high, 79% of companies adopting AI.
Lots of things have changed their name to be an agent.
Yeah,
that's true. That's true. Yeah. A lot of agent washing.
We used to call something a service or a model. And now,
the other thing too, that case, the 88% or wherever the percentage was, seems high in my thoughts. But when you think about an organization doing any little thing with one corner of their test somewhere, they can say they tried it, and therefore it counts as a percentage, I guess. But I think overall, the actual enterprise usage maybe is probably more a better gauge, and I'm not sure it's nearly that high.
Okay, moving on to your third prediction: cybersecurity arms race. So you predicted that AI will create new attack vectors, particularly targeting models themselves and the underlying data, with bad actors attempting to make LLMs push out incorrect data. Claude said you were highly accurate. This prediction was spot on. By 2025, deepfake fraud reached alarming levels, with half of businesses reporting AI altered audio and video incidents. Data poisoning and model manipulation became recognized attack vectors. The EU AI Act and numerous other regulations worldwide specifically addressed AI security concerns. Security emerged as the top barrier to AI adoption across the globe. That's according to a survey. Practitioners of automation judged it that way. And this validates your forecast about the cybersecurity challenges. So congratulations, highly accurate.
So far, the only thing I'm disagreeing with Claude here is what they're calling highly accurate versus somewhat accurate.
Exactly.
Well, that's a whole nother podcast we'll have to do. Their use of categorization or classification. Maybe it's not strong at that.
Great job at that particular prediction, Lou. You were spot on.
Yeah, you nailed it. Okay, the next one, and y'all interject as you feel led to do so. Prediction number 4, you predicted that AI will increasingly be leveraged in scientific research. And Claude said, that's accurate, not highly accurate, but that's accurate. So you correctly identified this trend. So following the 2024 Nobel Prizes in chemistry and physics for AI work, scientific research institutions dramatically increased AI adoption. AI-powered research tools advanced significantly in drug discovery, material science, and even climate modeling. The prediction about grant seeking and institutional adoption driven by AI's analytical capabilities proved accurate across multiple scientific domains. So I think it liked your prediction there. It didn't feel led to say highly accurate. Accurate is still a win. So what do you think?
I think that one was probably the easiest of the predictions that were made so far, because after you're winning Nobel Prizes, you see Nobel Prizes going out to folks using this. Of course, everyone else is going to use it.
Yeah. It was your softball prediction. That's what you said. Okay.
I'm just worried that, it seems like Lou's been getting almost all these right here. And Brad, I think that you and I are going to look like schmucks. Well,
we'll see.
Even more.
Whoa, don't jinx it yet. There's still a couple left.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. So number 5 prediction from Dr. Lou, you predicted that more physical robots will apply AI, extending beyond software robotics to handle work that's done outside of computers. Claude said that's accurate. This materialized exactly as you predicted. Waymo provided over 150,000 autonomous rides weekly in 2025, and Baidu's robotaxi fleet across China greatly expanded. FDA approved 223 AI-enabled medical devices. That was up from 6 in 2015. So just think about that jump in 10 years. Physical AI became a major focus area with significant investment in humanoid robots and autonomous systems. The integrations of SLMs into compact devices enabled real-time capabilities in physical robots. I keep thinking about that robot recently kicking that CEO in the chest. Did y'all see that video?
I did.
That was insane. So yeah, Claude said this was accurate. Any reaction?
So my background, as you know, is in mechanical engineering. I used to teach robotics at the collegiate level and still do a lot of physical robotics for fun. And the hard part with robotics isn't the mechanical side. It's never been, can I get a car to go? It's always been how you're training it to do something. Because the old styles of programmatically trying to account for everything is just so generally impossible.
Mm-hmm.
AI is such a good fit there. It makes a ton of sense. I still think we're going to see just more and more of that because we can do so much more if we're training them more generically as opposed to trying to programmatically account for everything.
Right. Yep.
And I would agree. And of course, we've seen so many of the humanoid robots now becoming, I want to say mainstream, if I will.
Mm-hmm.
We've got several companies now that are selling them to the general public, which is kind of terrifying, but it's out there. And then we've also had the advances in even the gait of these humanoid robots to a point where I know recently there was an article about one of the CEOs of Iron who was releasing their humanoid robot. It had actually, rip it apart to show that, in fact, the insides were robotic because it looked like a person in one of those little jumpsuit things. So it's interesting to see that we are getting to the point now. It's kind of freaky, but we're heading that way.
Very true. Very true. Okay. Well, let's finish it out for Dr. Lou. Prediction number 6. You predicted that rising cost and risk of LLMs will drive migration to small language models and large quantitative models focused on mathematical predictions. Claude said, "You are highly accurate, my friend." This was one of the most accurate predictions of the three of us. That's what it said. Claude said that. So
Wow.
congratulations. SLMs became a dominant trend in 2025. MIT named SLMs breakthrough technology. I've already mentioned that. The SLM market was valued at $930 million in 2025. It's projected to go up to $5.45 billion by 2032. You had Microsoft, Meta, Google, all releasing prominent SLMs and so forth and so on. So you nailed it on this one. Congratulations.
Does that
Any
mean he's
thoughts on this?
6-0? Is that what I'm hearing here? He
No,
got
he's
them
not.
all right.
In fact, I'll give you the summary, but any other comments on this one?
I'm just wondering how I'm not 6-0. It seems like
Exactly.
Yeah. So just to summarize it for Dr. Lou, and then we'll move on to Michael's. You had 2 that it judged highly accurate, 2 that it said were accurate, and then 2 that were partially accurate. Okay. So that's not bad. You had 0 that were judged inaccurate or mixed. They had
calling
another-
the judge. It seems like those partially accurate ones. It was even said I was insightful on one of them. So it's
Yeah.
not that these generative AI tools can ever be sycophantic or anything, but
Okay. All right. Let's move on. Mr. Marchuk's predictions. And I'm going to pick up the pace just a little bit. We don't want to have an hour and a half podcast here. Cool. Your first prediction was the introduction of AI personas combining agentic concepts with specific skill sets will really surge in 2025. Claude said that this is partially accurate. So this prediction, it said this prediction was prescient. So it only used that word, I think, once, and it did it for one of yours. So that's pretty good. But it was ahead of its time. So the concept manifested in 2025 through specialized AI agents and role-specific deployments. That is true. Microsoft introduced agents for sales, for HR, for IT functions. They did that at their Ignite conference. However, the fully realized persona concept with portable role-specific training packages wasn't as widespread as predicted. The industry moved in this direction, but implementation was still more fragmented than the unified persona that you described in your vision.
Can I flip that one to 2026 now?
yeah, that's what I was going to say. Predicting
Sure,
too far.
it's not a bad one for 2026. Yeah, you were just ahead of your time. That's all. So I wouldn't take that as a slap in the face. Any other comments on that one?
No, I think we're still heading that direction. But I agree that it was not as quickly as I had expected the
Yeah.
change to be.
Yeah.
The world just can't
Agreed.
keep up with you.
All right. Your second prediction: as subsidies dry up and companies expect return on investment, AI will become more expensive, especially for organizations embedding it into processes via API calls. Now, I was surprised by this, but Claude thought that this one was less than partially accurate. They call it complex mixed results. Partially correct, but nuanced. It's the way they describe it.
I got
Wow.
some talking to Claude here, man. Keep going.
While operational costs for large-scale AI deployments increased, and all you have to do is look at OpenAI, inference costs actually dropped dramatically for comparable performance levels. There was like a 280-fold decrease for GPT 3.5 level capabilities. The overall picture, enterprise adoption cost rose as companies scaled up, but per transaction cost actually fell due to efficiency improvements. Energy costs continue to be a major concern, but technological advances partially offset the surge in power demand costs through SLMs and specialized hardware.
I think Claude was mistaking the question.
Okay.
Because if you look, this is when we made this prediction, when AI had their $20 subscription level. Within a month, they had a $200 subscription level. So the cost did increase for people who became more power users. And as people continue to use that, we see organizations' costs increasing overall because of that. So while the per transaction may be more efficient and less costly, the actual costs involved in leveraging AI are increasing. So maybe the prompt that you used was just not clear enough to show how accurate I was.
See, I'm going to put this one into, again, you're too early. I think
Yeah.
it more in 2026 because we didn't see the per token costs go up as much as I think you were right to expect them to. The companies are, it's still being
they're
sold.
continuing to eat the money, right?
It's still being
OpenAI is
sold at a
continuing to
loss,
bleed.
still in growth mode, getting that market share. But that eventually they're going to want to make some money off of this, and those prices are going to go up.
It has to. We're at a point now where OpenAI continues to lose billions and billions of dollars every quarter. At some point, investors will stop throwing money into the fire.
No disagreement. Okay, well, let's move on to your third prediction. This one was small language models will rise. We've already talked about it. This was identical to Lou's, highly accurate. SLMs became a major force. You hit the nail on the head. So
I was copying off a Lou's paper anyway.
yeah,
so
you
I guess
probably
it was
were.
okay.
I should have checked your paper. Okay, well, we'll just skip to prediction 4 since you nailed that one. Prediction 4 for you, AI agents will be customized with corporate branding, ethos, and organizational knowledge, creating tailored organizational co-pilots across functions like legal, sales, HR, and advertising. I remember this prediction that you made. I thought it was pretty good. Claude said that was accurate. This prediction materialized significantly. So Microsoft's Copilot ecosystem expanded with organization-specific customization capabilities. Companies implemented agents that reflected their brand voice and their corporate culture. The Agent 365 platform introduced governance and identity management for organizational AI deployment. So the only caveat is adoption remained a little bit more limited than you anticipated in your prediction, with most implementations still in the pilot or early deployment phases rather than widespread transformation. So it tempered your enthusiasm a little bit, but it says
It sounds like my lens was on the 2026, not 2025.
I think
when I was
you're
making
always
these
thinking ahead.
predictions.
Yeah, you're always 12 to 16 months ahead, Michael. No doubt about it. Okay. Prediction 5 relates to custom AI hardware. You predicted that the development of specialized ASICs to run LLM operations more efficiently than general purpose GPUs with training on GPUs, but execution on specialized hardware would become a trend. Now, Michael, I don't even understand that prediction, but Claude did, and Claude said you were highly accurate. This prediction, it said, was remarkably prescient. So it's now given you that adjective twice. The industry decisively moved in this direction. Google developed tensor processing units. I don't know what that is either. Amazon created custom Trainium and Inferentia chips. Meta invested in custom AI infrastructure. Microsoft launched specialized AI chips. You were quite insightful in putting this together, or maybe you cheated. I don't know, but
I don't know. It wasn't on Lou's paper, so I don't know where that came from.
I think that it makes perfect sense. So again, looking hindsight, we saw that the costs are going up for, and we didn't see the cost per token go up. I bet a lot of that's because they're trying to lower the costs on their end. So having specialized hardware makes perfect sense.
Yeah. And I just think back on our Pulse Check podcast every week. We had lots of stories about companies and or countries that were really trying to get away from their dependence on NVIDIA. That's never good to have only one supplier for your lifeblood with AI. So yeah, the specialized AI chips, the infrastructure, certainly something that we saw a lot of. So great job, Michael. Way to go and way to get a highly accurate. Your sixth prediction was in the area that you care about the most, people and workforce upskilling. You predicted that training people to effectively leverage AI technologies will be the critical frontier, as tools alone don't deliver value without proper adoption and skill development. And as you might guess, Claude agreed with you and said you were highly accurate.
Not
This
press.
prediction identified a major challenge that dominated 2025 discussions, including just about every podcast that Michael put on the airwaves. Workforce skills readiness was a top 3 barrier to AI adoption, according to surveys. 68% of companies reported that half or fewer employees interact with AI agents. Industry reports consistently highlighted the gap between AI deployment and workforce readiness. There was a McKinsey report this year that revealed the Gen AI paradox: broad adoption with limited bottom line impact, largely due to insufficient organizational readiness. So this absolutely was a key theme in 2025. No argument there. I agree with Claude's assessment. Great job. What do you guys
Thank
think
you.
about this?
I
Couldn't-
unfortunately have to
couldn't
agree
argue
that
it.
we're still in the part where the adoption needs people to be trained more.
Yep. Okay. Another one you carry forward into 2026.
Well, I'll continue that, I guess. But yes, we'll have to redo this in January for our predictions for 2026.
Well,
That's right. That's right.
It's interesting. 'cause
Okay,
I see
so-
people using
So
the
Michael,
AIs like this all the time, the way Michael, was describing. And most people are still pretty bad at using AI and understanding how it works, and think that it's, not giving a response that sounds correct, but actually being correct and answering a question. And you see lots of overdependence or underdependence, not understanding how to set up prompting. So yeah, makes perfect sense.
Yep.
Michael's just all ready for 2026.
he is.
am.
He's ready.
I am.
So Michael, to recap on your predictions, Claude says you had 3 that were highly accurate. You had 1 that was accurate, 1 that was partially accurate, and then 1 that was mixed.
Not so accurate.
Difficult to verify. So that's not bad. So just hold on and wait to see how we end up in the end. Let's move into my less impressive predictions.
Oh, come on.
The 2 of you, but I actually fared pretty well on a few of them. Okay, prediction 1. I said that deepfakes will be one of the first places that AI regulations come into play. AI said highly accurate. And it said this was one of the most accurate predictions. Thank you very much.
It wasn't prescient though, so I'm just saying.
Yeah, no prescient.
Because it happened this year, not
how would you say that word?
2026.
Yeah. The U.S. passed the Take It Down Act that was signed into federal law in May of 2025, just 4 months after I made the prediction. You had 48 of 50 U.S. states enact deepfake legislation by August of 2025. Denmark proposed groundbreaking copyright protections for voice and likeness. The EU AI Act was part of it. They got into the game, including strict deepfake provisions. I could go on and on, but I blew this one out of the water. So I'll just
Congratulations.
thank
Good
you.
job.
Thank you. And that's a good segue to the second prediction, which was not assessed so well. I predicted that AI will provide personalized therapy and emotional support, filling gaps where traditional therapy is unavailable or undesirable, using emotionally intelligent AI. So Claude said that this is difficult to verify. It's complex and they're not sure. So it wasn't inaccurate, but it's kind of like, we're not sure. This prediction, it said, is harder to assess due to limited public data on mental health AI deployment. While emotionally intelligent AI advanced, widespread adoption of AI therapy remained limited and controversial. Now, I will argue this. If you looked at a lot of the surveys about how people are using their large language models, a lot of the surveys in 2025 showed that people were using them as advisors, friends, companions. And I would argue some of that is probably as counselors, right? As a source of emotional support.
I think you did
guidance.
well. I think you did well, Brad, because we've had a couple different articles that we've covered about how even Gen Zers are finding it much more easy to talk to their AI companion, which in ways is both as a companion comfort thing, but also as you mentioned, a counselor going through specific things. So I agree.
That hasn't
from
worked out very well for Gen Z, though.
Some of the stories have not
Great
been very
point.
good as it came
Yeah,
out to this,
great point.
but the idea is that people are leveraging this. I can see how Claude, this is difficult to verify because usage of that kind is like, look, what do people use Microsoft Word to do? Well, they write stuff. Well, what kind of stuff?
Mhm.
Who knows, right? And I think it's a lot of that has to do with that. It's very difficult
Yeah.
to verify because it's impossible to know what people are having the conversations about.
Yeah. And seeing examples of this in true like professional settings or counsel, I don't think there was a lot of that because counselors are, I think, reluctant to say, oh yeah, we're using AI to steer these people correctly.
I don't think
they want to
do that because
they don't want to downplay their own expertise.
and
Right.
there've been so many horror stories about
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. No disagreement. All right. Prediction 3. So I predicted that AI powered search would overtake traditional ad driven search. Now, Claude said partially accurate. It did capture an important trend, like OpenAI added search to ChatGPT at the very end of last year, and that seemed to build some momentum this year. You had Google introducing what they call AI overviews. Perplexity seemed to gain a little bit of traction in the search area based on their AI capabilities. So they said, okay, Brad, the trend you predicted is underway, but it hasn't grown maybe as much as you thought. It hasn't replaced Google. Google's not, in danger of going bankrupt anytime soon. So I don't disagree with that. What do y'all think? They said partially accurate.
I think that's accurate.
Are
Yeah.
you guys using? Are you using?
I'm a
things
big
like
fan of
ChatGPT
Perplexity.
more?
I tend to use Perplexity as my go-to start point at this
Yeah.
point, honestly.
Yeah.
So maybe for me, it's a little more accurate than someone else.
Same for me
Okay.
because I don't want to, the difference is if I do it in Perplexity or I'll use Claude sometime and you go in, do your search there, it's going to not just find you the articles and things, but also read them, pull all that data and give you a much better response, while ideally avoiding all of the sponsored results. And, I think marketing departments have had more time to get used to promoting their results on Google than they have on the AI pieces.
Agreed. Okay, number 4 prediction for me, and this one I blew out of the water, but I knew I would. Nuclear energy will play a much bigger role in powering AI data centers. This one, Claude said, highly accurate. You had Microsoft basically rebooting 3 Mile Island. You have Google partnering with Kairos Power. Amazon invested $500 million in X Energy, which a large portion of it is nuclear fueled. You have Amazon, Google, and Meta all pledging to triple nuclear capacity by 2050. So I don't know what else I can say besides,
What we should
it's
say
a
is
mic drop. It's a mic drop.
listen to you on investment advice. We could have invested in these uranium mines back in January 2025 and then retired by now is what we're saying.
Yeah.
Good job.
Okay. Well, anyway, for what it's worth, that was the only one we had that was energy related, and Claude said, well done. Okay. Another area of passion for me, cryptocurrency. So my 5th prediction was that cryptocurrency and blockchain will finally achieve mainstream adoption. This was an interesting year for crypto, as we know. Most of the year, it did show quite a bit of breakthrough. You had Bitcoin exceeding 100,000 in share price. That was a big deal. So currency ownership reached 28% of American adults. That's up from 15% 3 years ago. Michael Marchuk is not in that 28%, by the way. You had stable coins hitting $200 billion in circulation. And you also had traditional financial institutions like BlackRock, Fidelity, JP Morgan, all launching crypto products in 2025. So with that, Claude said, accurate. Yes, accurate. Not highly accurate, but accurate. And that's despite a big loss in value toward the very end of the year. There was one celebrity, I forget who it was, who was heavily invested in crypto. And I remember seeing a news headline, so-and-so loses all their money in like one day or something. I mean, it was a pretty shocking. But overall, I think crypto did achieve what I predicted. Do you guys agree or disagree? And it's okay to disagree, even with all those facts that I just threw at you.
All the facts. Go ahead, Lou.
I think Michael and I are on the same page here on crypto. I heard there was a great analogy that describing crypto valuations as similar to Beanie Babies.
Mm-hmm.
Where, yeah, they might be going up for a while, but at any point in time, people could realize that it's really nothing there and it could all drop away. And we've seen that happen. We've seen people lose a ton in the past quarter. So at the same point, though, we're seeing more and more people get interested.
Okay. So despite your viewpoint on crypto overall, you think, yeah, there was more adoption in 2025.
And I would say adoption is an interesting word to use because I still don't believe people are actually using cryptocurrency as currency. They're using it as a tulip bulb, an NFT store that at some point in time, as you mentioned from the Beanie Baby thing, it's at some point in time, people are going to either feel that it has the value or it don't have the value. So at this point in time, I don't see the utility yet. Even though the utility is there, I haven't seen the widespread acceptance or adoption of that utility to make it to keep the value. So it's the promise of the value, but I don't think it has the value yet.
Okay.
It's an investment right now, and that's it.
Okay. My last prediction was SLM usage will take over for LLM usage. So that was the one prediction the three of us all had in our stable of predictions. And I got a highly accurate on that as well. So that rounded out my 6. So my categorization of my predictions, according to Claude, identical to Michael's. 3 highly accurate, 1 accurate, 1 partially accurate, and 1 that's difficult to verify.
Sounds like you two spend too much time together.
Yeah,
I think so. I think so. So here's what I did. This was great, but I wanted to quantify it. So I decided to assign points to each classification. So essentially, if you get highly accurate, that's worth 5 points. Accurate is 4, partially is 3, mixed is 2, and then inaccurate, which none of us had an inaccurate prediction, you would get 1. I applied that to our results. Now, Michael and I scored the same because our results were the same. And Lou, even though your results were different, you're not going to believe this, you ended up tying with us as
3-way tie.
It's a 3-way tie. Now, let me ask you, Michael and I have talked about this a lot on the podcast. Is this an example of sycophantic thinking that large language models are too agreeable? They're always trying to show things in a positive way. Let's have harmony. Let's not have major disagreement. So even though I fed all this stuff to it and I said, tell us how you think, in the end, it ended up assessing all 3 of us essentially as equal in our predictions, even though they varied quite a bit. Is this an example of a large language model trying to keep us together as happy, content colleagues that aren't going to carry this as a chip on our shoulder going into the new year.
I mean, while I will certainly agree that large language models do tend towards being sycophantic. In fact, I have standing instructions with all of my LLMs I use to not be sycophantic and be clinical and analytical in their responses because I want more accurate results. I think in this case, it might be that, all of the predictions we're making make sense from the industry, and we are seeing similar data that we're basing our predictions and information off of. So it does make sense that we'd be around the same ballpark.
Does that mean we all get participation trophies?
No, we
Yes,
all
that's
get
right.
last place.
We do. We do. We do. And let me just finish because we need to wrap up this diagnosis of our predictions. But Claude did have some parting thoughts and for each of us. And it said, Dr. Liu, your predictions were strong on technical trends. You brought a nuanced understanding of agentic AI and the way it's evolving. And you had excellent foresight on AI governance challenges.
Totally agree with
Michael, for you, Claude said that you were exceptional on infrastructure trends, that you correctly identified workforce readiness as a critical gap. You are strong on cost and specialization trends, and you're slightly ahead of the curve on AI personas. And then for me, it said, Brad, you are clearly the smartest of the, no,
that. Of course.
no,
So
for
handsome.
me, for me, it said excellent on regulatory trends, strong on cryptocurrency, no doubt, accurate on nuclear energy, and mental health you were the only one to bring up mental health AI, but that was insightful given where AI is headed. So, I just feel affirmed. I don't know about you guys. I feel like that was a large language model pat on the back. And I feel like we did fairly good. I didn't think we would do as well as we did back
I think
in
we
January.
did very well. And I think, as we mentioned earlier, we're going to revisit this in 2026 in, say, mid-January. We'll get together again and do a similar prediction to see how we come out for 2026, even if I have to reuse several of mine to
I think we all might be reusing some.
But this
It's
is
not
like
like year ends and all of a sudden the trends are going to stop.
exactly. But this is a great exercise, I think, to see where we are at and show for the folks that are listening that, we try to stay in touch with what's going on because it's important to help people plan for where they're going within their organization. So again, thanks everyone for listening. Really appreciate this. And Brad, thank you for pulling this all together and helping us get scored.
Thanks for listening to Transform Now, the podcast from SS&C Blue Prism. You can find all of our episodes on your favorite podcast channel, as well as YouTube. To stay on top of the hottest topics in the world of agentic automation, subscribe now. The future of work is here.